Cool, a new intro.
Chris Black.
Nice.
News reporter.
No, not really.
Investigative reporter.
What am I investigating?
Graduated top of his class in journalism.
Barely graduated high school.
Catches the tough stories.
Not really.
Always bring you the latest headlines.
Who wrote all this stuff?
Always honest.
I am
and
mad.
always entertaining.
My kids don't think so.
Chris Black, the podcast, starts now.
What's going on, everybody? You've reached Chris Black, and this is Chris Black, the podcast. And man, you caught me on a good day because I got the energy. Get on your feet! Just kidding. If you're in the car, please don't get on your feet. Let's make sure that we're driving safely and doing what we got to do to get the job done. So, today's episode is going to cover my 41st birthday. We're going to also talk about a new segment that is joining us today. And man, we got a lot of good stuff going on. So make sure you swing by podpage.com/Chris Black. That's podpage.com/Chris Black to learn all there is to know about the podcast, archives, and even connect with me online. So without further ado, let's get today's show on the road. So make sure your phone's charged up, your AirPods are ready to rock and roll, and let's get started. Hi there, and welcome to Chris Black, the podcast. My name is Chris Black, and today we're going to talk about anything... No, I'm just kidding. What's going on? Where are we at? Hold on. It's not coming together yet. Oh my goodness.
Shave and a haircut.
Hold on. We're almost there. I think this is... There we go. Much better. All right. All right, everybody, welcome back to Chris Black, the podcast. My name is Chris Black, and I will be your host, your ringmaster, your circus leader for the day. And boy, do we have a busy show scheduled for you guys today. It's kind of crazy. So today we're going to talk about my birthday. I turned 41 and why that's fun and exciting. I'm going to get into a few things with the old back to school topic, and that'll be done for a while. And hey, you never know. We've got even more coming up as the day rolls on. So stay tuned for this and much, much more today on Chris Black, the podcast. And hey, maybe you'll learn something. Maybe not. I don't know. It's always the goal. So anyway, we are going to dive right in. August the 19th has always been a special day for me for a myriad of reasons. But most importantly, it's my birthday. And I remember growing up, President Bill Clinton's birthday was on my birthday, and then I started learning of other famous people, and of course I can't remember them now, but I thought that was cool that I shared a birthday with the president. So, of course, now knowing who Bill Clinton is and who his family is, I think they're great, honest, upstanding people, and I don't want to die. So, congratulations to all the wonderful things the Clintons have done for everyone all over the world. Moving right along, I had a busy birthday. Probably one of the busier ones I've had in a very long time. My day started a little after 5 o'clock with getting up, moving around, and had to get Skylar back to Jacksonville and get him moved in. That's always exciting. The first thing that always has to take place when we go to these places, we got to drive, but is getting the key and kind of getting located. And last year, this wasn't too bad. It was on the first floor. It really wasn't that big of a deal at all. But this year was a lot easier. There was an elevator involved. We did have to trek a little further than I would have liked, but that was okay. We made it. Men know what I'm talking about when I say this. We made it in 2.5 trips. And what I mean by 2.5 trips, we had a hand truck that was chock full twice. And then, of course, we had some rolly totes. And the half trip was just a rolly tote full of groceries. So that wasn't really, couldn't even count that as a full trip because 2 of us didn't have to drag crap. But we got that done and, kind of helped them unload a little bit. And next thing we knew, is pretty much unpacked and moved in. And we shuffled some furniture around for them. And it's a really nice setup. Last year, the room was, basically a small room with 2 people. Now it's 2 rooms with 1 person. It's kind of strange. It's not really rooms, but it's kind of sectioned off. But it's a pretty unique situation for him, and I hope he enjoys it. So We went to lunch after that, and one of my beefs I had, we went to Struts, which is, one of my favorite places to eat. However, they have this thing where they charge you for using your credit card, which I think if you're going to be in business, the cost of credit cards it's the nature of the beast. So I don't feel that I should have to pay for your credit card processing, but that's just my opinion. Now, on the flip side of that, we also took note that like gratuity, for example, has been included or is starting to be included in more circumstances. And I just kind of took notice of this at different places. But on the bottom of the receipt, it says, gratuity is automatically included for parties of 6 or more, for example. And I've noticed that at a few places. And I don't really know how we got to the gratuity side of it. Gratuity is, Latin for gratitude. I'm just kidding. I have no idea what it's Latin for. But, one would reasonably expect that gratuity is basically paid based on performance. And I'm a performance-based guy. I'm in sales. I get paid based on performance. So I think it's only fair when we're dealing with, things like tipping and so forth. It's performance-based. I get it. However, I've grown to learn that a lot of restaurants now that include the tips on the credit card hold on to that money, deduct the processing fee, and then pay it on their paychecks, and people are paying, of course, taxes on the money for their tips, which I have no problem with. However, I know in years gone by, it used to be if you had $47.15 in tips on credit cards, they give you $45 out of the register at the end of the night. That was your tip out. And, you decided how much money you claimed for tax purposes and all that good stuff. So now it's kind of like there's a mechanism built in where it's like, your tips are automatically all-inclusive. So it's pretty interesting, like I said, to see how the restaurant game's changed. And I've also noticed that people... they won't require tips, but they'll certainly put it on their software when you're checking out, like at a sandwich shop, for example, or you order at the counter and then sit down, kind of a deal. They'll ask for a tip, and I just say no thanks. Surely that's an error because I'm serving myself, and the tip to myself is hey, let's get here and get it done. So tipping is kind of the game's. I guess the game is changing on the tipping side of the world, but. Anyway, so we go to the old Struts there and have some delicious, food and lunch and so forth, and we'll get Skylar back to his dorm, and we shake hands and kiss babies and all that fun stuff. Just kidding. We get there, and there was nobody really there when we left. We kind of got an early check-in because we had to be back in Wetumpka pretty early because of Christopher's football game. So we got the earliest check-in we could, and of course we're always early. So I think check-in was at 10:30. We had keys by 10 o'clock. So, or before 10 o'clock actually. So long story short, we get to this process, we're getting off, and there's people, a few more people moving around, and you get off the elevator, and you're like, you just smell all the cleaning solution, the Fabuloso, the Lemon Pledge, the Windex, all the different combined make this delicious smell, and I'm like, students are back and they're cleaning, and that's so wonderful. And we go down the hall to Skylar's dorm room, and he slides his key in the door and he cracks the door open, and we get hit with all those smells. My son's Glade plug-in was basically scenting the entire floor when you got off the elevator. I was like, son, you got to crank that down a little bit. And I don't know what he had in that thing. It smelled pretty good, but it was amazing. We could smell it off the elevator. Down the hall. It was absolutely the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. So, we, of course, leave and come back home, and I'm trying to get back, and Christopher's waiting on us. He's got his first football game as a percussionist, and he was really excited about it. I was excited for him. So, we had about 45 minutes to spare when we got back, and we got everything together for Christopher and got his uniform put on for the first time, and he got his, shoes and, everything he needed to walk out the door, my handsome man. And, we get about, I don't know, let's call it 3 miles down the road. My wife's like, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? I forgot my phone. Your cell phone? Yeah. Your lifeline? Yeah. Do you want me to go back and get it? No, I'll be fine without it. So I did give her my Samsung Flip so she at least had a phone, or we had a way of contacting her at some point during the game. But, she forgot her phone, so that was hilarious. And guess what was on her phone? The tickets. Oh, yeah. So, more about Friday Night Lights, Wetumpka edition, when we come back after this break. Welcome back to Chris Black, the podcast. Boy, it was a barn burner Friday night, my friends. Oh my goodness, it was a barn burner. But hey, that's how we do it in the We2K, baby. And with Wetumpka, we gonna play to the bitter end and make it happen. Now, the score wasn't even close, but the game was absolutely incredible. So, mad props to the drum line, mad props to the band, the cheerleaders, the dance. Everybody got the crowd going Friday night, and man, that's what we love to see when we're in this business. So, Friday Night Lights. It's the first game, and I gotta tell you, if you're not from here, let me paint the scene for you. We used to go to a stadium called Hohenberg back in the day. Steeped in tradition, been around since the 1800s, just kidding, the early 1900s, but not 1800s. And the city, years back, decided we're going to build us a state-of-the-art facility to the tune of $13 million. Now, I have no idea how much it actually cost, but anyway, they built the stadium. So some people were very like, we kind of need to stay in tradition, and Hohenberg is our home, and blah, blah, blah. Other people were like, yeah, let's sell our souls to the devil and get a new stadium. And anyway, so it got real interesting there for a long time. So finally, after a lot of hoopla and foolishness, the stadium gets built. Big thanks to those who put that project together. I know a lot of money was spent and made and whatever, but it's finally done. I think we're about 90% done with the facility at this point. We've got a new Parks and Recs director. She seems like she's phenomenal. I have not met her personally yet, but she's doing a great job for the short time she's been there. And so it's time for us to experience the first Wetumpka High School football game in the new stadium. Now, Skylar did 4 years at Hohenberg. We had 4 phenomenal years at Hohenberg. We had the ups and the downs, the good, the bad. We won, we lost, the whole nine. So, and of course, my wife ran concessions, or she didn't run concessions. She was on band booster, so she was heavily involved in, the operations and the fan experience at Hohenberg, and we knew the ins and outs. It was pretty awesome. So this place we don't really know a whole lot about. We've been there for graduation, and I was able to go to 1 or 2 games before my heart attack last year. So I think I went to one after. And we still didn't have a parking lot, and it was completely different. So now it's time. So we get there super early to drop Christopher off. He had to be there at 5:30, so we dropped him off about 5:15. And the parking was interesting, to say the least. But I'm never one to be, I'm not going to let parking determine my experience. We're going to make it happen. So we roll up on the scene at the gate. I believe the gates were going to open at 5:30, which they did not. They opened closer to like 10 to 6 or something to that effect. It really wasn't that bad. So, and luckily there was a breeze flowing, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And we always, because we have, kids in the band and all that other fun jazz, sit near or adjacent to the band section, no matter where we are. So my wife and I, we made it up, and we knew we had friends coming that were going to join us, and really excited about that. And it was kind of the way things used to be, but they're not anymore, because a lot of the band parents we used to hang out with are gone, unfortunately. So we kind of found our spot, made our way, and a buddy of mine called me, and he's like, "Hey, you guys here?" I'm like, "Yeah." I told him we were at, and he kind of made his way that direction. And then another good friend of mine, he and his son came. Of course, his daughter came, but I don't think he's allowed to say that out loud. I don't think it's cool, for these teenage girls to hang out with their dads, and I get that. But the irony to it all was we wound up sitting behind the student section, so, it was kind of funny. And the big news is we have a new coach for the first time in a long time. Our former coach, Perry, wasn't Nick Saban, but some people might say there's a legacy there, similar, but he's gone. This is our first year without him, so it's kind of interesting to see which direction the program's going to go. So we have a new coach, Bear Woods, And Bear Woods has done a lot of things to shake up the program. He's doing things differently. And this is the tale of the tape. This is the introduction to everybody going to see how Bear Woods does business. Can't wait. We've already started off with some new things. They've got the Indian Walk, I believe it's called, and the Warpath, and some really cool things beforehand, and then the band gets involved, and the football players stand shoulder to shoulder, staring at the flag as the Star Spangled Banner is being played, and pregame is completely different from what it's been. It's just it's a new team for us. It's a new coach, new stadium. Like, it's all new for us. It's pretty interesting to kind of be with the same school we've been with, but a completely different experience. So, it's time. The band's on the field, pregame's playing. We've already done the, Star Spangled Banner, and now it's time to really get down to business. And let me tell you, it was absolutely the coolest experience for something different. Now, one thing the stadium does do that I'm not particularly I guess I wasn't prepared, the blinky lights. The blinky stadium lights, it just throws me out. I think there's something wrong happening. Now, if they flashed in colors, it might not be as bad, but when the lights start blinking, I'm not used to this. And I know that stadiums around the world probably do this, and I'm just not used to it. But after the first couple of times, I kind of got used to it. But it took me a minute to get used to oh no, we're losing power. Because the only time stadium lights have, had a chance to blink in my experience is when they get struck by lightning or they lose power. Just how it is. So it took me back to my days in the stands in Florida. We would play in these swampy, rainy, disgusting situations because in Florida, that's all that ever happens, So it kind of took me back to, those days when the lights started blinking. But it was really nice out. It was cool. It was a really nice experience. And it really is that small town experience. We played at JD, who's not really a rival, but they're another team kind of local to us. And their band did not travel with them, which is kind of unfortunate. But they had a few fans travel with them. Their fans, I don't think, travel as well as Wetumpka fans do. But of course, Wetumpka pulled out a win, which was good. There were some silly, sloppy plays in the beginning, which I think kind of threw everybody for a loop because we weren't expecting. We've come to expect certain things with our football team. And again, we've got a new team, new leadership, and I don't think anybody really knew what to expect. But overall, I was impressed. I feel like Wetumpka stands a better chance this year under new leadership than they would have in the past. I think it was just things that kind of, if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. And I think that they were kind of in a rut. And I think Coach Perry's time here, he did a phenomenal job while he was here, but he's moved on to other things, and he seems to be happy in his new role, and Bearwood seems to be very happy in his new role, and I think he's going to do a great job for us. And honestly, the community and the football players and even the students of the high school are fortunate to have him doing what he does. So Friday Night Lights was an absolute success. It was definitely different from what we're used to, and I can honestly tell you that I didn't lose anything. I was really concerned that I was so steeped in the tradition and Hohenberg, and we used to have the Indian princess, spear the field. And, of course, the closer to the 50-yard line she got, the better we were. They don't do that with the turf for some reason. Not really sure why. Apparently, sticking a spear through the turf is frowned upon in certain circles. So we've kind of had to change up how we do the pregame stuff. So I was sad to see that tradition go, but I think they've kind of filled in the blanks with enough new stuff that it doesn't really matter. So really excited to see what the season holds. And I always like high school football. These kids play for the love of the game. It's not about name, image, and likeness and a salary and trying to buy Porsches and houses and crap like that. These kids play because they have a love for the game. So really glad to see the team and the community come together as a whole. So it was really an exciting time. I can't say enough about it. Now, unfortunately, we go to Mobile this week, which my wife and I will not be traveling to, but the band will. And the next week we play another team local. So we'll probably go to that one. Again, my rule of thumb is if it's an hour or so, I'm in. I cannot go to far away places still. I'm still kind of nervous about leaving my cardiologist and all that goes with that. So But overall, it was a phenomenal experience. I had a really good time. It's a great way to spend my birthday. It was a long day, and by the time I got home, I said, oh my gosh, I'm not feeling 41, but I am tired. Of course, my day did start a little after 5 o'clock. So, that being said, overall, 41 was a great birthday, and you know, there's always more to the story as the days go on. So, really looking forward to this football season. Looking forward to 41. Hopefully, everything turns out. I won't say as planned, but you know, we got a lot going on with that. So, stick around. The next segment, I will share with you some things about what I do for a living, and I've come across some really interesting things in my travels, so stay tuned for that. All right, folks, college football season is right around the corner, and you know what that means. That's right, it's time for Sports Talk with Wonder Bread, the Alabama Roll Tide's most diehard lifelong fan. Everybody put your hands together for Wonder Bread. All right, we got Wonder Bread on the line. How's it going, Wonder Bread?
Going good. How you doing this morning?
Doing all right. Let me get a Roll Tide. So you are hands down the most prolific Alabama player. You'd be a player if you could, but you're definitely an Alabama fan. So how long have you been a Bama fan?
As long as I can remember. I'm 52, and as a kid growing up, you were in the state of Alabama. You either loved Alabama football or you hated it because you liked Auburn. Basically, Bear Bryant was kind of iconic. You know, I dreamed of playing for him. You know, when I grew up, you know, and things like that, like a lot of kids do. But I remember I was 12 when he passed, and I cried like a baby. But, my whole family, other than my mom, was Bama. So she was Auburn because of her dad and her brothers. But, you know, we all can't be perfect. So.
Do you really judge people based on being Auburn fans? I'm just kidding.
No, not really.
Just
I love my mom, but she's diehard Auburn. But, you know, I still love her.
I understand. You still go to her funeral one day, right? I mean, we're not going to hold that against her. Yeah. Good night.
And I respect everybody's got their own choices. And, you know, some people just don't always make the right decisions.
I get it. So, to people who are not from the South, in a nutshell, explain the Alabama-Auburn rivalry in the state of Alabama.
It's kind of hard to explain. And some people I've talked to, worked with over the years, are from Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh or say out west or somewhere. They don't understand until they get here. People ask them, like, who you for? No, you got to pick a team. They don't understand it, and then they see the passion and all people have for it. I mean, it's just like any other thing in other areas of the country. You know, that it's a passion, and when I was a kid, it was kind of like, you know, I would lose sleep when Bama lost, and there was a lot of times I'd lose sleep, you know, and I'd stress. And
that's a lot of pressure.
As you get older, you realize there's more to life and more important things. But I still love it, and I pull for them hard. But if they lose, I get over it the next morning because it's life, you know. But it's really in the core of you, and it's a big thing, you know. Just in the South in general, SEC football is a big thing, and I don't think anybody is any more diehard than a Bama fan, and we've been spoiled over the years, and you know, but it's just kind of, you grow up, and like for me, it's a hobby. Like I like to hunt and fish, but sports is entertaining, you know.
Oh, absolutely. So let me ask you this: a lot of kids today, and I say kids, let's say our kids' age, let's call it 18, 19 years old. They've never really known a lifetime without Saban. Saban's been around for so long. So for these kids who've never really experienced some of the tough times in Bama history, give us just a quick education on some of the lowlights in Bama history and how they bounce back from it. Because people think, oh, well, Bama's always been on top. They've had their fair share of struggles over the years.
Yeah, they you go back to Gene Stallings' years, and about 1990 when he come in. The years before that, they fired Curry after a 10-win season because he went 0-3 against Auburn. And then we went through the Mikes, the Mike Shulos, the Mike Dubos, the Mike, I forget, Mike Price. It's Rolling Baby, down there with the hookers. And,
oh, yeah.
And we went through our stuff, and experienced all that. And now it's kind of like, I think what happened is finally Alabama figured it out. Instead of the old heads who kind of, the boosters and all kind of think they know how it needs to be done, and they get in the coach's ear and tell them, hey, you need to do this away. And Gene Stallings didn't play that game, and when they started fooling with him a little bit after he lost one game, he kind of said, "I've had enough of this. I'm of age. I've won a championship. I'm done with this." And he went off into the sunset to his ranch. But now they realized finally they get it. They had to get the right guy in there and give him the keys and say, "Hey." And I think that's one reason Saban's so successful at college and not in pros is so much is he can recruit and get whoever he wants to, and in the pros you can't do that. You got to fight with the general manager. He wants this quarterback, you want this one, and you got these prima donnas and these these egos, which is getting like that college now with NIL and all that other stuff. That's another story. But Saban can do and whatever he wants, and he's got a no buyout clause. He can just say, "The heck with it, I'm leaving whenever I get ready." And the administration at Bama and the people overseas, the board of directors, they're not going to do anything to piss him off.
I agree.
They got it too good. When you're winning a championship every other year, a natty, and that's the expectation, what more can you ask for? We're spoiled. Last year was considered a rebuilding year. They had a Heisman winner, won the SEC, beat the only undefeated team that was ranked number one in the country. Lost to them 3 or 4 weeks later, after we had some injuries and all, and who knows what would happen if we'd been healthy, but they had injuries too. And you realize after a while that's what it's come down to. And the people who are young these days, like I said, they just better get ready, because if they don't find a good coach when Saban leaves, whether it be 3, 4, 5, 6 years down, he just got extended to 2030. People are like, oh my God, he's been there 15 years already. They're looking at a quarter century of this.
Yep.
And they're going to be ready for just Saban just to leave. But I just hope for Bama fans' sake that we get somebody good that can at least keep us good standard up, because if you don't, there's going to be people jumping off bridges and stuff. So it just
people are serious, man.
Yeah, they are. And like I said, I get over that, but I know people today, they're 60, 50, 70-year-old men who just, they got to have their blood pressure meds and all because Alabama's losing. I'm not like that anymore, but I do love it,
Look, I'm an Auburn fan. I'm used to that. That comes standard. It doesn't get my blood pressure up and down either way. It don't really matter. But
right.
I will say one thing that Alabama has done very, very, very successfully is to promote their program. They've certainly lifted the standard of excellence. And even during COVID, during a worldwide pandemic, there were still expectations that even though they may or may not be playing in the fall, their program kept running. And they came up with very creative ways to keep everybody engaged with the program. And I think that's really what makes the difference in some of these programs. And the fact that, the directors are just, it doesn't matter who they are at Alabama. They just know that, Nick Saban is the end-all, be-all when it comes to the football program, and they just leave him be, and he does what he does. And I think that's a very unique thing. How many people do you know that have been hired to do a job with freedom that he has? That, hey, turn this program around. All right, guys, you're not going to like it, but here's what's going to happen. And I've met people that have worked around him. There's an administrative assistant that works with a family member of mine that worked in his office for the first couple of years he was there. And basically, she said he's just a vile individual. But he knows how to get it done, and he's only vile because the people that are around him, he'll get off this high horse. No, he won't. Yeah. Once you get on board with the program, he's fine. But when you buck the system, he don't have time for that. But I think he's a phenomenal coach. He's a phenomenal human being, and he knows how to get it done. And I don't think there is a career path in the pros for Saban. I don't think he's built for that. So I think he's in a phenomenal spot now, and he's really kind of carved out a niche that I don't think anybody else will ever be able to compare to, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the thing about it, like you said, 2020, some people think that's one of the best 2 or 3 college football teams ever. They had a future Heisman Trophy winner on that team, or I think he won the Heisman that year. Smitty, the wide receiver. But Saban adapted, like you said. They were basically playing in a bubble. Alabama had very few players miss time with COVID. Saban even had it himself. And, one time he missed a game. But the thing that's been different, like I said, with Saban is he adapts.
Oh, yeah.
He told them years ago, this high-octane, fast thing, the offense it's not good for the players. Oh, he's crying sour grapes. But now you see these guys faking injuries. But a lot of times they are hurt because these big old 300-pound linemen can't run and keep up right, and you can't shift the guys in and out if the offense doesn't change guys. So, he adapted to that. He gets Lane Kiffin in and Steve Sarkisian and gets a totally different brand of football than he had when he had Derrick Henry and Trent Richardson and Mark Ingram, and 2 or 3 of those guys won Heisman. You saddle them up and ride them like a rented mule.
Oh, yeah.
He decided, hey, you want to play this way? We'll do that. And now they got the NIL deal. He didn't like. He said it wasn't going to be good. I think it's not good for the future of college football. But just a month ago, Alabama announced they got a thing set up there at the stadium that the players come in and say, this is where your jerseys will be sold. And you make NIL, you get deals for Mercedes or whoever, or Bojangles or whatever. You're sitting here, you're getting popular. Your merchandise can be sold right here. Alabama was the first to. So Nick Saban said, "All right, you want to play that game? Here we go."
And that's where we're going to end it for this week, because I know we can do 3 shows on NIL. So that'll be our topic next week. So stick around for the next segment. We'll delve into this a little bit more.
Do you like working on your own car? Do you have a history of needing to make multiple trips to the store to get something you forgot? Are you looking for an excuse just to leave the house? Then come to the Parts House. Our team will look up your parts on the computer and even watch YouTube videos just to tell you how somebody else did it. They only work here to get away from their family too. Want to get it right the first time? No can do, brother. At the Parts House, we want it to cost more than twice the price and take 3 times as long as a regular mechanic. Turn an hour project into a weekend project. Is your marriage going great? It'll be in shambles by Sunday, so make sure you visit the Parts House today, or the money you save may very well be your own.
Welcome back. It is 22 minutes past the top of the hour, and I tell you what, Friday Night Lights always gets me excited. I don't know what it is. One of those football games, seeing those kids play, it's an incredible way to spend a birthday or any Friday night. But we only have like 9 or 10 of those weeks to choose from, so anyway. But I know that I see a lot of things in my travels, and I feel like it's my obligation to share those things with the people that I come across. So we're going to jump right into what it is I actually do for a living. So I deal in business communications, but not the way you would think. I do deal in voice over IP and system integrations, and two-way radios, GPS tracking, and dash cams are the bread and butter of the business, as they say. And I know it sounds kind of dry and boring, and it can be. It's hard for me to really get excited and jump up and down about things and say, oh, wow, this is amazing. But from time to time, we'll run into a product or we'll run into a project that I get really super excited and passionate about. And some of these things you do completely by accident. So part of what I do is sales and development. My role essentially is I solve problems for people who don't realize they have a problem necessarily, or they have an issue and they just think that's how it is. So let's put that in perspective. I had a client last week call me. They use GPS tracking. They had some issues with knowing where their employees were after hours in their company vehicles. So of course, they had GPS tracking, but it wasn't working great for them. And then they also decided that while they were doing the GPS tracking upgrade, it was time to overhaul and really protect themselves with dash cameras. With front-facing and rear-facing cameras, you can literally recreate an accident after the fact. So you can see what happened before, during, and even after. So it's a pretty powerful tool when you have someone that's on your staff that's involved in a crash, because if your guy wasn't doing anything illegal or wrong and someone just cut him off and slammed on the brakes, you've got the evidence you need. A lot of people have the misconception that I don't have 18-wheelers, I don't have box trucks. My guys drive around in Ford Taurus or little F-150 or fill in the consumer car of your choice. I don't need dash cams. Well, that may be your thought, and it's true that a lot of people believe that. But I can tell you from personal experience, the amount of companies that I have seen saved by the investment of dash cameras are incredible, and it happens all the time. We had a company recently who's in the timber industry that was involved in a crash, and unfortunately, the truck ran into the back of a trailer that did not have any lights. And they were able to essentially recreate the accident and prove that, on the outward appearance, it would appear that, a large commercial vehicle slamming into the rear, of a lawn trailer, the guy just wasn't paying attention. Well, the fact of the matter is the trailer had no lights and neither did the truck. And the video evidence was able to recreate what happened at the time of the impact and was able to assist the investigators in understanding what really happened. So those are fascinating things that I get to see in the line of work that I'm in. I've also had situations where people wanted to make sure that their drivers were doing what they were supposed to do as far as, let's say, a pre-trip checklist and things of that nature. And of course, the camera kind of gives an insight on that as well. But it gives a lot more peace of mind, not only to the driver, but to the company owners as well. So, talking about some interesting things that I've seen while I've been out in the field, I run into a lot of misconceptions about what it is, people believe GPS tracking to be. So, I ran into a gentleman the other day. He has a service business, and he basically told me that I have phones for my guys, and they all have an app on their phone, and that's how he tracks his vehicles. And the vehicle tracking is designed to track the vehicle, but it doesn't just do dots on a map. It also assists with determining speed, location, history, aggressive driving, things of that nature. Your phone's not really good at that. It's not really designed for that. It also is not designed to stay with the vehicle in the event that the vehicle's stolen. So if you have a guy that's, let's say he's in a service business and he's inside a building working, doing his job, and he comes out and everything's gone, where's the van? I don't know, but I can tell you that John Smith's standing in front of the house looking confused. I see him on the map. Dash cams would tell you the story all the way around. Dash cams are a huge preventative measure also. I've come across video from my customers where they've had people that look suspicious, and their cameras on their storage lot, for example, will indicate there's someone in the parking lot in front of their business looking at the commercial trucks. And then the camera inside the truck will detect the vibration, and they look up and realize that there's cameras in the trucks when the light starts flashing, and they walk away from the vehicles. Now, could they have stolen those vehicles? I have no idea. But I know that when they look up and made eye contact with the camera when the light came on, they stopped what they were doing and walked away. Now, we also had a situation similar to that where an assailant was caught because of dash cameras. The guy actually stole a commercial truck, and the owner of the truck knew that the truck was missing because he got an alert on his phone at 2 o'clock in the morning that his 18-wheeler was rolling. And he's like, that's really strange because the keys are sitting right here and it shouldn't be going anywhere. And when he logged in his camera, he saw the guy actually driving his truck. Now, the funny part about that was the guy was driving it, but he had like a cloth over the steering wheel trying to keep prints and this, that, and the other. Idiot didn't realize he was already on video. And the video, after dark, the infrared cameras are phenomenal. So, I mean, you could count the hairs in his mustache. It was incredible. So, that's kind of the stuff we get into. The two-way communication stuff is talking at the push of a button. People enjoy being able to, talk to their team at one time and not have to call everybody individually. I was doing the same demonstration with the company that wound up going with dash cams and telematic solutions last week. I gave her secretary and we were going to race to talk to the owner and the general manager. And so I was like, you call the owner and I'll call the general manager. And so I handed my radio to the owner, and she called the general manager on a cell phone. I gave her a 5-second head start and still beat her. The communication's instant, it's clear, it's loud, and it makes sense. And what's really cool about it is the entire team hears the same message instead of having to call, and kind of like the telephone game we used to play in school. by the time somebody whispers in your ear and you take the message and you convert the message, it may start with, John's going to leave at 5 o'clock today, and wind up being, Johnny was 5 minutes late 2 days ago. He should be fired. You know what I mean? Like, the message can just change that much. So that's why I always find it very interesting to you have the two-way communication back in the hands of people who've never really used it. There's a reason firefighters and police officers still use push-to-talk. I'm seeing more and more they're calling into dispatch with the telephones and so forth, which is kind of unnerving. But I can tell you that push-to-talk still is viable for a lot of businesses, and our local schools in my area have really gone back to push-to-talk. There's a middle school that I spoke to administration 4 years ago, and they told me point blank, we don't need radios. There's no reason for us to have radios. There's just not a purpose there. We have cell phones. The district gives us cell phones. We don't need radios. I said, okay, that's fine. Now they're under new administration. They dug out the old radios to the back. They didn't really have enough to talk, and they just invested in outfitting the entire school with brand new digital radios, and it didn't cost them hardly anything. So it was worth it for them to kind of see what needed to be done and solve that problem. So if you go back and ask them now, how's your communications this year? Oh man, it's much better. We were able to communicate in the car line. We were able to communicate getting the buses out of here. It's really a streamlined process. So that's one thing that I'm really excited about, working with, educators and, different types of businesses. And that's one cool thing about my job is I get to go to all these different places and do different things. So I'm really kind of excited about the prospect of, visiting with even more businesses. So kind of doing the spiral thing. I started in a small little cluster. Now I'm working my way out to introduce to other businesses and so forth. But I do have a lot of opportunities to help businesses that they may not be using currently, and we can also integrate with a lot of software and telephones and things like that you already have in place. So I've got a product spotlight that's going to be coming up pretty soon that I think everyone's going to enjoy. It combines the best of all of this technology world into one wicked cool device. So stick around. We're going to wrap things up here momentarily and go from there. Welcome back. Whenever you hear the drum solo kick in, you know it's time for us to part ways for another week, and I'm sorry. I hate it. I'm gonna miss you, but I'll be back next week, I promise you. We're gonna keep doing this over and over again until I get it right or they boot me out. But I have enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed reliving my 41st birthday. And I've got some really cool things coming up for the month of September. So swing by podpage.com, spelled common spelling, podpage.com/Chris Black. That's podpage.com/Chris Black. Check out all things to do with the pod page, and you'll learn where to find us online, how to connect with us on social media, and even check out our archives and some cool projects we've got going on. So keep your eyes open, and thanks for joining me. You make it possible for me to keep doing this every single week, and for that I certainly appreciate it. So until next time, stay safe, live your best life, and I'll see you next week.